Calvin, is there a movie being made or going to be made?
Well, it's hard to really ever be sure about this. We have got a guy doing a pitch for a movie right now, and we got somebody working on a screenplay. Um, we've had 3 or 4 drafts of screenplays already, and we're trying to keep them as realistic as what we can. So, we usually reject a screenplay if it's not right, and they go back and they redo it. And we own about our 4th draft now that they're reworking.
Yeah.
So I think one day, there's no doubt in my mind, it's going to be a movie on this.
Yeah. I've heard Travis Walton say a few times that Fire in the Sky, the movie on his incident back in the 70s, I mean, he said there was, it was part truth, part fabricated for Hollywood, which I was surprised. But and speaking of Travis, another famous abductee. Have you ever met Travis? Do you meet up?
I did. I met Travis at this last convention I was at in Phoenix, Arizona, UFO Congress, and we had never met. We spoke, a few times, but we actually got to sit down and visit with each other there. And Travis has quite a story, and like you said, I don't think that they can anybody can put a movie out without adding a little something different in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we're trying to keep the facts right in ours, but they might have to add a different color car or something that's coming down, or maybe have 2 or 3 less police officers than what we had seen, and things like that, just to cut the budgets in the movie. So, it's no way that a movie can stay true to the exact. And like I said earlier, you get 20 witnesses, you're going to have 20 different stories on something that happened.
Yep.
And Ben, I'm the only live one. They have Charlie's book, and they have myself and what we told. And when it boils right down to it, 2 people that really know the truth. Now, I'm telling the truth as best as I can. I'm a Christian. I believe in God. But the truth, what I'm trying to say again, Charlie might have seen something a little different than what I seen. But I know what I'm telling is true, though. There's no doubt in my mind.
Calvin, even though it was 46 years ago, how vivid is your memory of that night? Can you still see it exactly now as it happened?
I could probably see it better now than what I could then, because I've actually been under hypnosis and all to help sharpen and that don't do anything but just kind of help you sharpen a few details out. And I've had it in my attention, and I've been to conventions and talked about it. And, I could see it good now, better now than what I could back then. Because I ain't going to lie to nobody. I was scared to death then.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And you're scared of something, you take 20 different people, and they could all see a crime or something taken forward, but no 2 stories would be alike.
Yeah. Can you briefly describe to us what happened?
Absolutely. This was October 11th, 1973. And actually, my first day to work, I had come down. I was getting married in November, and this was October. I was going to get married November the 9th. So I wanted to find a job where I wasn't working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And, that's what we did back then. Everybody just worked. So I called Charles Hickson up and got a job with him at the F.B. Walker and Son shipyard. And my first day at work there, he asked me, would you want to go fishing? And I said, sure, Charlie. That sounds good. I said, but I got a problem. I didn't bring any of my fishing equipment. He said, well, I have plenty of equipment. So we're going to buy the house and And for a man south to loan you fish equipment, he just soon give you his firstborn or his wife or something else, because that just don't happen. I mean, that's a big gesture for someone being on the coast down here from the south. So we went by and we got the fishing equipment, and we was in my car, and we drove over to the grain elevator first. Now, while we was fishing at the grain elevator, the bugs got so bad, we just couldn't stand it. And I said, Charlie, I can stand a lot of things, but I just can't stand what's going on now. Something you can't see biting you as big as a giraffe's mouth or something. He said, well, I know another spot. Maybe that won't be that bad. So we left and went to the old Shaw Pitter shipyard, which is on the east bank. Well, it's on the east bank of the river. We was on the east bank, but we was on the west side of the east bank. And we got to get out of the car, and I noticed it was a bunch of trash and debris around. And I had mentioned to Charlie, Lord, look, why don't they keep this place up? And I said, Charlie, there's a no trespassing sign here. We fix to get a lot of trouble fishing here. He said, I fish here all the time. And as far as the trash, when the tide comes in, it washes all this mess up. Or when the water gets high, then when it goes out, it just leaves it, and there ain't no way to keep picked up after it. So I took him at his word. I took him at his word about the trespassing. So we just kind of walked by the trespassing sign and got down to the pier. We pulled an old log up and sat on the pier. And I remember I was sitting there looking across the river at a steel ship. Now, it never really clicked on me until this day, because I was working in the shipyard. How does something made out of steel float? And I just couldn't understand it. And now, I know they make them out of concrete and everything else. But while I was looking at this ship across, and I think it was old Noah's ship or maybe a Coast Guard cutter, I noticed some lights reflecting across the water. It was some hazy blue lights. And I told Charlie, or I was thinking to myself, yeah, I'm going to jail now. Before we trespassing down here, and they fixing to run us off. Well, about that time, we both stood up and turned around. And when we did, the light got so bright, it was like a big spotlight they had put on us. And it was blinding, almost, you just barely couldn't see anything. But when our sight started coming back, and this was fast too, there was 3 bulky looking creatures that was coming out of this craft. And they was just kind of gliding across the top of the marsh grass. Well, as they got closer, I noticed, or I was looking, and they looked like big Green Bay Packers coming toward us. They didn't have a neck, or their head just kind of set all the way down on their shoulders and all. And 2 of them reached and got a hold of Charlie, and one of them got a hold of myself. Well, here I was thinking about somewhere to run, but it wasn't anywhere to run, because we had water in the front with a lot of debris in it, water on the left side of me, and water on the right, being out on that pier. Thinking back, now what I should have done was just took Charlie and put him up there in front of me and let him get him and me leave. But, it didn't quite work that way. But anyhow, 2 of them got a hold of Charlie, one got a hold of myself. And immediately when he grabbed me by the left arm, I felt an injection of some kind, or I heard a little poof of air, what I really heard. And I was relaxed. I wasn't scared no more. So later we determined that was some kind of something to get you, knock the edge off where you wasn't so scared. Well, they levitated this, or levitated me. Now I lost sight of Charlie, floated me up to the front door of the craft. And I was just thinking about where did all these bright lights come from. And I was looking inside when we got to the door, and it looked like it was coming out of the paint, looked like it was just made there. And this thing got to the door and paused for a second, made a left turn. Then he made a right turn. went down a hall a little ways, turned right. It took me into what I call the examination room. And there was one of the most beautiful tables you ever seen in your life. Like it was probably glass or crystal clear. It's actually a pretty table, you know. And I was sitting there looking. All I could do was look forward. I couldn't really move nothing. I could roll my eyes and roll my head, and that was about it. And this big ugly thing put me on this examination table, and I'm going to call him a robot because that's the way he moved mechanical wise. He didn't act like he had any kind of sensations and all about him. Well, he laid me at an angle on this table, and I was laying down looking straight up at the ceiling. And I noticed there's something about the size of a deck of cards. It was a little blue on the bottom. And it come down and stopped about 1.5 feet in front of my head. This thing started circling my head, and as it would circle about every quarter turn, it would give a clicking noise. And then when it clicked a few times, it got back up in front of my head and stopped. And then it shot back up into the ceiling. And that was the end of the clicking. But I could sense another presence there besides the old big ugly one that was over in the corner now. By this time, he moved over there and he just shut down more or less. But I could sense that there was something coming toward me. And I rolled my head a little bit. And this is where and I'm calling her a female. And I don't know if she was or not. I really don't know if it was male, female, or what it was. But she favored a female. And when she communicated, not by voice, but telepathically, she did it in a female's voice. So she came over, and the first thing she did was grab me by the cheek. And I did notice her fingers, her hands, on her 2 middle fingers on both her hands was a little longer than the average human hand. Now, the old robotic looking creature, he had like crab-like hands or mitten on his hands, but she had normal looking hands with the exception of the 2 fingers. Well, she kind of rubbed my cheek. I didn't feel any sensation whatsoever of warmth or feelings or anything. No, couldn't smell any smells. But the shocking thing, the next thing she did was took her other hand, pushed down on my chin, and she took the 2 middle fingers and she run down my throat. Wow. And was trying to come up behind that little thing that hangs down in back of your throat. I don't know what the technical term is for it, but it just hangs down back there. Mm-hmm. And I started choking. I couldn't breathe. My nose started bleeding. So she automatically just pulled out. Now, this is the only communication I had with her then. And she said telepathically, her mouth didn't move because I was sitting there looking at it. And I was about to choke still. She says, "We're not going to harm you." But it was in like an old redneck girl's voice, like somebody, you know, I would talk to most all the time. And I didn't understand that if they was from somewhere else. And I really wasn't for sure then where they was from. And she said, "We're not going to harm you." Then she made a mumble noise. And she did that verbally with her throat. And the old big ugly went in the creek corner over there, popped up like a jack in the box. And he come back over to me, grabbed me by the left arm again. And this is when I felt another injection going in my arm. And it just kind of settled me down. He carried me out, set me down about the same spot he put me out, except I was facing the river this time with my arms stretched out. Now, this is the first time I've heard Charlie. He said, Calvin, you okay, son?" And then we turned around and looked at the craft. He was on the ground. He stood up about the same time I did. And we turned around and looked. And this thing just picked up off the ground a little bit. Then when it got up a little ways, it just disappeared into the sky. It was so fast, like a streak of lightning.
Can you estimate how long it all took?
You know, I would be lying if I said, but according to the time that we called the sheriff department and they came out and picked us up, and the time that we got to the fishing pier, this was probably around 5:30 because we had a good full moon that night, and about 11 o'clock before I left the sheriff department, and we was in there probably for an hour. So it was a pretty good while inside this crowd. It didn't seem like it, but we spent a good deal of time in there.
Did did Charles go through the same thing that you were put through?
You know, to be real honest with you, I never talked to Charlie. I don't know what he went through. Me and him never really talked about what happened. The only conversation we had was Charlie said when we got out to the pier, well, we need to go tell somebody. I said, tell somebody what? Nothing happened to me. I don't want to tell nobody nothing, Charlie. We don't need to tell nobody this. Because that was my first day on the job, and I didn't want them to think I was crazy, and I didn't want them to get fired. I was fixing to get married. I didn't want my in-laws to think I was a slap idiot or my fiance,
Hmm.
because things just didn't happen like that you heard about back then.
Yeah. Calvin, I read somewhere where you say you're still searching for answers on what happened that night. So you still think there are blank spots that you still need to find out about.
Well, that's something I'm not real sure about. I I know it's a lot that I need to find out about, and a lot of others also need to find out about. Uh, but yeah, I'm still hunting answers on the truth. I just mainly who were they, where were they from, and how come they picked me out of all these billions of people on this world. But now that I've been going to these conventions and all, listening to other people, I know, I'm not just the only one that's ever been abducted. It's a lot more that has.
Yeah.
So I just keep an open mind about it.